Okay, so what did the founders think? Um, what would you say about, just based on your knowledge of our history and the Declaration of Independence, would the founders of the British government had power or authority?
I would think power more than authority,
Hmm.
mostly because I feel like just the way with um, how they responded to the British, they didn't really feel like it was a rightful power, so it wasn't really authority.
Hmm. Yeah, so they felt like their power was being used wrongly. Yeah, so I think they viewed it as, yeah, the government was telling them what to do in certain cases or putting troops in their home, but that wasn't used with the right authority or the right intention or the right position. Yeah. Anybody else want to chime in here?
I think for a while it was kind of like people thought that they had authority because legally they were in charge of the colonists and stuff, but they were so far away from Britain that the king couldn't necessarily control them, just at his whim. So I think they didn't really have that much power, which is why we were able to kind of do our own thing for a while.
Okay, that's a great point because they were far away, their power was slightly diminished. And you're right that a lot of Americans did believe that the government had authority. In fact, to when you look at the legitimacy of the British government, I think most Americans acknowledged it. Right? If you look at what it says in the Declaration here, it says, "In every stage of these oppressions, we have found, or I'm sorry, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms." In other words, they tried to get the government to change, so they must have acknowledged there was some rightful authority there, right? And some legitimacy there. It said, our repeated petitions have only been answered by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. So here is where there's like a shift, right? So they were like theoretically Americans would have respected and acknowledged the king and even and not even the parliament, but also the parliament if they were acting in a way that they thought was proper. Okay, and so this kind of goes back to the American idea of legitimacy, right? What gives a government legitimacy? It seemed like they were accepting of the authority of the British government to a certain degree. Now, obviously, um, we kind of lost respect for that authority because it wasn't being used properly. Um, but there was a degree at which we did respect it. So what changed? Okay, so I think this goes back to the American view of legitimacy, right? And this is where it's kind of described here in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, so here we see the idea of rights. Natural rights or unalienable rights give, in this idea we're going to find, give legitimacy to the government. Okay, this is the idea that John Locke was presenting. He was saying that the government really gets its power from the people. Okay, look at the next part. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. Okay, so the idea here is that the government is only supposed to function to secure the rights of the people. Okay, that was this logic. And so a legitimate government is going to do that job. If it's not, it's essentially illegitimate, right? That's essentially what I think what Locke was saying. So this is the idea of the social contract. Okay, and I'm going to give you a homework assignment when you're going to read about Locke, and you're going to see his logic. He's saying that, okay, people willingly form governments, right, to give some order into society. They do that willingly, and you guys might debate as to, whether you were part of that process, but theoretically, right, in theory, people form governments, and in theory, those governments should protect their rights. Okay, and that's what the social contract is. There's a contract. Okay, government, we're going to give you a job. Okay, people, we're going to do the job. It's like a handshake. Now, that doesn't mean it always occurs, and this was the logic here, was that Americans were saying, oh, wait, the British government isn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. Okay, it's not, these unalienable rights can't leave us, right? We have these natural rights, and therefore it's very important that the government protect them. That's its fundamental job. Okay. Any other comments here?